Well, I think I think we're on. This is a novelty. I hope you'll bear with me because I just fancied doing a live from the coffee shop here in Oaxaca, as I'm just about to go painting walls with Laura, and I suppose really I'm just deferring getting myself all painted up. So this is my very first live feed, and there'll be possibly one or two people who might join me on this in various parts of the world. I don't know if Marta in California is watching, but let me just show you briefly where I am. I'm in the central Oaxaca. This is the library, which has got very good Wi-Fi. I'm also in the Maragua Hotel coffee shop, which has got. We just had a very good coffee and vanilla bun. I bought some flowers from a street seller for the most important woman in my life, my daughter. She's got a residencia guest coming on Monday, and today we're painting the guest's bedroom and living area, and I thought flowers would be nice. So we are doing our best service, well Laura is, to make it not just habitable, but a real comfy place to live. It's a residency of 3 weeks. This person is coming from London, I believe, and they will have full access to all of the aerial equipment in Circular, which Laura, my daughter, has created just a short 18 months ago, and she's doing fantastically well. I'm very proud of her. I'm in the car on the way in, because she lives in the hills. That's where I've been staying with her, in San Agustin. I got chatting about changes in the makeup, really, of Oaxaca. I said to her that, by my reckoning, Oaxaca must be, that's Oaxaca, by the way, must be one of the top 10 or 20 destinations of favourite places to live. And why is that? Because it's so lively, it's culturally vibrant, it's an old Spanish colonial city with great architecture. Every other place in town is either a coffee shop like this, or a Commodore, somewhere to eat. The local Spanish food is great. Last night Laura and I had a fabulous meal. We started off with a shared plate of ceviches, which is raw fish and chopped cucumber and apples and things. Delicious. And don't tell anybody, I had meat. Well, not red meat, because I've given that up for you, but mostly. But I had cerdo, pork, points, it said on the menu, and Laura did have some meat. So I was musing on the changes of culture, and Oaxaca has become very popular with white, middle-aged and older American males in particular, and women, not just males. And right next door to us here is a super sort of a hotel. It's a hotel, really, accommodation anyway, and it's my favourite Spanish word actually, la mariposas, the butterflies. Well, the butterflies from all parts of America have flown here to Oaxaca, and they live months at a time. Sometimes half the year. Believe it or not, it's winter here, even though it's about 26 degrees today. And the Americans love it here, but without being judgmental, I try not to be. It doesn't always go down well with locals. It's the old story of, let's use the umbrella term, gentrification, where more well-off people than the locals get to buy up all the best properties. And it's affected, Laura tells me it's affected prices, not only of property, but of food and coffees. So for example, if I was in a local coffee shop, this coffee would cost about 40 pesos, maybe about £2. But here it's going to be about, I'm guessing, I'll get the bill and share it with you, about 350 pesos, I'm guessing, which is, no, that's wrong. It's going to be more like 60 pesos here. And also had a bun, a vanilla cake. But I was suggesting, Laura sees it as not an entirely positive development for the character of Oaxaca, and we did compare this. For our American cousins watching this, I must apologize. I feel apologetic, but I'm afraid American imperialist or cultural imperialism is spreading through Mexico. It got as far as Oaxaca, and it's got as far as Costa Rica, where I was 18 months ago. And again, Americans are buying up the best land sites, and the locals really just become labourers on the building site. Forgive me, that's very simplistic, but it does genuinely affect the look, feel and price of a place. So exporting American cultural ways is not always the best. I'm going to get slated for this. Sorry, Marta, and others, but there you go. Say what you see. The other thing that I talked with Laura about in the car on the way in, it's about a 40-minute journey from the hills into the city centre. And the other thing I touched on, or I suggested to Laura, is how our perception of places is so coloured by our cultural conditioning. It's so easy to say, it's just a truism. There's nothing wrong with that per se. It's an important and welcome part of our human condition. Of course we have a culture. I like to think of myself as European. The Latin American culture here is very different for me, and it sort of disturbs me because it's a bit chaotic. It's wonderful, but it's a bit chaotic. And I've sort of, last night I'd had enough I was overstimulated in the city here. We went out for a meal at about 8 o'clock, and by 9 o'clock my computer brain needed defragging. Too much stimulation. I live a quiet life in my tiny house these days, writing. It's lovely, but so these cultural layers, shall we say, they are filters. They're like multiple coloured specks or filters on your perception of life and how it should be, and it's very easy, I'm guilty of this, to see things in a judgmental way. It's not like this in Europe. One thing that I really struggle with, I'm sort of ashamed to admit this, dogs barking at night. Now, I had to contend every night, and the locals, they just ignore it. It's just the way it is. But it gets under my skin, or gets under my earlids and my eyelids. It was the same in India, and in India I had to learn to reframe the dogs barking at night. So imagine you've rented a very simple little apartment just outside Tiruvannamalai, which is Ramana Maharshi's ashram, and it's a lovely dog going past. I do like dogs, especially Peppy. Laura's dog Peppy is officially the best dog in the world. But in the evenings, going back from the ashram to my flat in Tiruvannamalai in India, the local dogs would just gang up on me and bark, take the piss out of me. Oh look, new boy here, he's we'll give him the run around, we'll give him the bark around. And so it was. And then my friend Darshana, all of the regulars in Tiruvannamalai, they have spiritual names, you know. So Martine, very lovely Martine, French girl, becomes Darshan or Darshana. But she gave me the best advice. She says, when you go out from the flat, take with you a packet of biscuits or buy some whilst you're out. Then when you come home in the evening and the dogs gang up on you, give them a biscuit. That'll shut them up, and it did. So there's my tip whilst abroad and the dogs are barking at you. Have a packet of biscuits handy. The other thing that I learned was to reframe it. So instead of them barking at each other, and here at night, it really, once one gets started, the neighbours, it's like a Mexican wave of barking, literally. I've learned to reframe it. They're not actually barking at all. They're telling each other jokes. Ralph, have you heard the one about the English guy and the book he's writing? So that sort of diffuses the ruidoso, the noisiness of the dogs barking. But my suggestion to Laura, and then I think I'll finish. I've got walls to paint with Laura now. She'll be looking for me. Is that what would it be like if we could drop our cultural conditioning and see through uncluttered, unconditioned eyes, without judgment, without being annoyed by barking dogs, for example, without wishing things to be anything other than exactly the way they are. And it sounds impossible, perhaps. How can you see and not see through your own eyes? Well, here's a little experiment you can try. And this was, for me, a sort of, literally an eye-opener on a mushroom ceremony called Hongo Sagrada, magic mushrooms, last weekend. And it became absolutely clear as the sky swayed that it wasn't little me that was doing the seeing. It was none other than seeing itself. I wasn't out of it. I wasn't completely out of my tree. It just seemed entirely obvious that this is the case. So my book's title, Mistaken Identity, Why You Are Not Who You Think You Are, really came into focus, if you like. The little me that I take to be looking out through these eyes is nothing other than seeing. Just go with me on this. Is there any evidence to suggest that the seeing that you are now experiencing is your personal, private seeing and knowing. Could it not be, let's call it, universal knowing? Just knowing, perhaps with a capital K, and seeing with a capital S. It's just happening. Perhaps it's a case of mistaken identity. It's not separate little me having this seeing and knowing. The separate little me, the ego, what it does best is it wraps up all our sensing, seeing, knowing, feeling, touching, thinking, wraps it up like a sausage machine and puts your identity stamp on it. But that's what we might say ex post facto, after the event. You can't control those thoughts. I defy you. There you go. I defy you to control your next thought. Or try this. If you think you're the captain of your ship, the pilot of your mind, instruct the pilot to go on silent running for even 1 minute. Not possible. So this ex post facto, sort of like Charlie Chaplin stamping things on the production line, is just what the ego does. What evidence is there that that's not universal mind or unity of consciousness? There's a very mysterious verse in one of Paul's letters where he says, "For we have the mind of Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me." It sounds a bit like Alien. Sigourney Weaver comes out from the undergrowth. Think about it. And I think that's enough. I need to go and paint a couple of walls. See you later. I don't know how to finish it. Where do I press to finish it? Bye. Thanks for joining in. See you later. I hope it's recorded this. I need to pay for my coffee now.